Welcome to They're Terrified and Tipsy. My name is Courtney.
And I'm Stephanie.
Since we have very different feelings about scary movies, we decided to share our emotional struggles with you all.
Yeah, so grab a glass of wine, your favorite couch blanket, and get comfy and enjoy the ride with us. You can find They're Terrified and Tipsy on Instagram and Twitter, plus all the podcast platforms. For links, head over to tipsypod.com. Cheers!
This episode is brought to you by the Slash and Cast Podcast Network. Learn more at slashandcast.net.
I tried to embrace the lifestyle of being a vampire, and being so young, my mind latched onto it so deeply, so tenaciously, that I got lost in it. Going to the electric chair is, as morbid as it may sound, it's been a fantasy of mine. I used to think about that a long time ago when I was 9 years old. I used to dream about my own death, so it was just intriguing. It was almost like I was romantic with the subject of death. I don't care how I die, as long as I do so. I have nothing left on earth. These quotes were said by Rod Ferrell. And welcome back to Reverie True Crime. I'm your host, Paige, and today's episode is about Rod Ferrell, his obsession of vampirism, starting his own vampire cult, and the dark path that it led to. So let's get started. Roderick Justin Ferrell, mainly known as Rod, was born on March 28, 1980, to his 16-year-old mother, Sandra Gibson, in Murray, Kentucky. Sandra and Rod's dad only had 3 weeks of holy matrimony before it was over. She was only a teenager who had emotional issues and quickly became a mother whose decisions were not always the greatest. After the divorce, Sandra and her son moved back into her mom's home. Rod never really knew his father, who went to join the military after he and Sandra split. Rod's mother would make a mistake that she did not know she was making when she would watch movies about vampires with her son. They would watch Dracula, and she let him play a tabletop role-playing game called Vampire: The Masquerade. This would spark an obsession in Rod about vampires. Sandra had skeletons in her closet, and she lusted over at least one particular teenage boy. When she was 34 years old, she wrote this to a 14-year-old male child, the brother of Stephen Murphy, who comes up later. She writes, quote, "I long to be near you for your embrace. Yes, to become a vampire, a part of the family, immortal, and truly yours forever. I only hope that one day you will once again return to Murray. You will then come for me and cross me over, and I will be your bride for eternity, and you my sire." End quote. Sandra was into vampirism, and Rod would only follow in her footsteps, repeating the behavior he thought was normal, since it is what he saw from his own mother. Rod said as he got a little older, he started to have a complicated love-hate relationship with his mother. Some sources say that Rod talked about the molestation and rape that he would suffer by his own grandfather, Sandra's father. At this time, Rod was only 5 years old. Some people think that maybe the grandfather was not the only one taking sexual advantage of him. Since these were allegations that couldn't be proved in court years later, Sandra's father was never charged for the crimes he allegedly committed against his own grandson. Eventually, Sandra and Rod started to reside in public housing while she took a job as an exotic dancer, occasionally making money by doing sex work as well. Rod had been expelled from his high school in 9th grade. At the age of 14, he wasn't just smoking pot and taking LSD. He was also using cocaine and heroin. He would put cocaine and heroin into his veins at the same time, which made him go into deep fits of rage and destruction. Sandra's mother and father started living in Eustis, Florida in 1990. Due to that, she and Rod would travel from Kentucky to Florida often. While in Florida, Rod met Heather Wendorf. She was a sophomore in high school and in the stage of rebellion against the smallest matters, such as cleaning her room. When Rod was not in Florida, he would make collect calls constantly from Kentucky, which was running up Heather's parents' phone bill. Her parents pissed her off by telling her that she couldn't keep talking on the phone to Rod. Stephen Murphy, who will come into play later, said, quote, Rod, when he ran up an $850 phone bill talking to Heather Wendorf, I mean, that's a lot of time on the phone, you know? Rod looked at her as this damsel he was going to rescue. To him, this was a modern-day romance, end quote. When this fixation with Vampire the Masquerade got stronger, 16-year-old Rod started his own cult with other teenagers from Murray, Kentucky. They said they were also living a lifestyle of vampirism. They called themselves the Vampire Clan. Rod was convinced that he was a vampire named Vesago, who was 500 years old. Vesago is presumably a butchery of the name of a demon in occult literature, Vesago. Vesago was a goetic demon in the occult literary work titled The Lesser Key of Solomon, which was a spell book and dealt with demonology. Vesago was third in command of the spirits of Satan's army of rebel angels, according to the occult belief, and possessed special powers such as fortune-telling. They indulged in consuming each other's blood, wearing only black, and only listening to dark gothic and industrial metal music. Wearing all black and listening to those genres of music were obviously not the problem here. Stephen Jaden Murphy, who Rod met towards the end of his junior year at Callaway County High School, said he, quote, sired Rod and crossed him over as an official vampire in a ceremonial practice of blood drinking. This is around the time Sandra started writing letters to Stephen's younger brother. Stephen said about Rod, quote, Rod had the same views, same principles in life. Sometimes it's kill or be killed. We learned that at a very early age, as children raised in homes that were not so financially sound, end quote. Talking about when he sired Rob, Stephen said, quote, I had Rod meet me at a tombstone, the birthplace, and we began the ritual. We just used regular razor blades, cut the upper arm, end quote. When Murphy had said this, he had known Rod for about 1.5 years at the time of the ritual. He went on to say, quote, after we cut ourselves, he would feed from me first until pretty much his heart's content or until the bleeding stopped, and I would do the same as well. Giving blood as a gift is one of the most precious gifts you can give to someone. It is a total commitment. There is no turning back once this is done. End quote. One of the teenagers that joined the vampire cult was Howard Scott Anderson. He was 16 years old and came from a poverty-stricken household, living with his alcoholic father, who was abusing Howard's mother all of the time. Rod was in full swing, spiraling even more out of control, becoming deranged to a greater extent. He decided to break entry into the Murray-Callaway County Animal Shelter. Rod was not there to rescue any animals. He viciously, ferociously murdered 2 puppies. Rod was eventually caught and taken to jail on charges of robbery, trespassing, and cruelty to animals. In November of 1996, Rod had a girlfriend named Charity Kesey. She went with Rod, Howard, and a 19-year-old girl named Dana Cooper to Eustis, Florida, with Howard at the wheel. They were on their way to so-called rescue Heather Wendorf, so they could all go live in New Orleans, Louisiana, as a vampire family unit. Heather claimed that she desperately wanted to escape her home because her parents were mistreating her. As far as her parents, her father Richard was 49 years old and a purchasing agent for Crown Court and Seal Company, and her mother Naomi was 54 years old and a housewife. Stephen Murphy talked about going to Florida to get Heather. Quote, "The knight in shining, demon-scaled armor, driving to Florida to rescue this girl and bring her into the fold, into his house." End quote. November 25th, 1996. They all went to a graveyard in Eustis so Heather could be ritualistically initiated as a vampire by guzzling Rod's blood. By Rod's account, he said after that, he took LSD and went to Heather's house to steal her parents' car, since theirs had broken down. They needed Heather's parents' car to get to New Orleans. Heather later told the police that she told Rod, quote, "I don't want you messing with my parents. Just leave them alone." End quote. The agreement was that since they initiated Heather, in exchange, Heather agreed to unlock the house door so they could just go in and steal the car keys. Nothing else was supposed to happen. Rod and Howard snuck into the Wendorf family garage and made their way into the house, with Rod bearing a crowbar. He spotted Heather's dad, Richard, fast asleep on the couch. Rod went crazy, senselessly bashing Heather's father in the head, face, and ribs with the crowbar until he died. Richard's skull and ribs had been fractured. In another part of the home, Heather's mom, Naomi, had been taking a shower and happened to walk in on this appalling scene. She bravely approached Rod, confronting him, then splashed scorching hot coffee all over him. As strong and courageous as she was to stand up to this teenager who was off the rails, things took a turn for the absolute worst. Rod clobbered her with so much force that it broke her brainstem and she died right away. After Rod killed them both, they branded them with ritualistic burns, the letter V, with dots surrounding it that signified the members of the numbers of people in the vampire cult. The boys went on to comb through the home, looking for anything they thought was worth money. They raided the home of the deceased, pocketed a credit card, some nice jewelry, then rode off in the family's blue Ford Explorer. Later on, Rod said that he planned on letting Naomi live, but the way she came at him pissed him off, and he immediately changed his mind. While these gruesome murders were happening, Heather, Dana, and Charity were allegedly not there. Heather said she wanted to say goodbye to her boyfriend. Dana and Charity were driving Heather to the boyfriend's apartment. Heather's 17-year-old sister, Jennifer, had just gotten off of work, and when she got home, She walked in to find their mom and dad brutalized and deceased. She immediately called 911. 911, where's your emergency?
My emergency is in Eustis, Florida, 24135 Green Tree Lane. I need 2 ambulances. My mother and father have just been killed. I just walked in the door. I don't know what happened. They're dead.
Both of them, ma'am?
Excuse me?
Both your mother and your father? They're not breathing at all?
I don't know. I didn't check. I can't get that close. They're my parents.
Is anybody there with you, ma'am?
I have no idea. I don't know who is in the house. I have no... Hang on. There's someone on the other line.
Hello, ma'am?
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, ma'am. What is your first name?
My name is Jennifer. My last name is Wendorf.
What makes you think that they have been killed?
There's blood everywhere. Please, as fast as you can.
Okay, we're on the way. We have law enforcement on the way also. Are you there alone?
I have no idea that there could be somebody in the house.
I mean, nobody came there with you.
Who?
Nobody is there with you?
My sister is gone, though. I don't know where she is. She's gone.
Wait, do you mean she lives there with your parents?
She should be here. She's only 15 years old and she's gone.
All right, ma'am. What I would like you to do is get out of the house and sit outside in your car, okay?
Okay.
If you're not sure if anybody else is in the house, you can't tell anything that's going on. When you tell me there's blood everywhere, you mean like on the floor, on the walls?
Yes.
The floor.
My mom is... I can't go in there. I'm afraid to leave my room, to leave my sister's room.
Okay, that's when you came in the front door and went straight into your sister's room?
I walked in the front door and I really didn't pay attention, but I thought my dad was sleeping, and then I went and called my boyfriend to tell him I was home. Then I came back in and I saw blood, and then I ran into the kitchen. My mom was in there, and then I ran to the couch and my dad was there. There was blood everywhere.
So your mother's in the kitchen and your father's in the living room. Okay, we're on the other line with law enforcement. We're going to make sure law enforcement is en route out there, okay?
Okay, and my sister's gone, and the Explorer's gone.
I want you to stay on the phone with me, okay? You don't have a portable phone, do you?
No.
You're in your sister's bedroom?
Yes.
Okay, is there a way you can lock your door, your bedroom door?
They won't lock.
Okay, you can't lock the bedroom door. Okay.
Would it be alright if I called somebody, like my grandparents?
No, you stay on the phone with me. I don't want you to tie up the line, okay?
Okay.
In case there's somebody else in the house, I want you to be in contact with me. Have you touched anything in the house?
No, just the phone.
Okay, just bear with me. What's your sister's name, hon?
Heather.
Your sister's name is Heather.
Yes.
And what's her last name?
Wendorf.
You don't happen to have the tag number on your father's Explorer, do you?
I know the first 3 letters are PUU, and it's an electric blue Explorer, a 1994 model.
Your last name is Wendorf also? We're giving this information to law enforcement on the other line. And what was the first letters on the tag?
PUU.
What was the last time you heard from your parents and your sister?
Last time I heard from my dad was last night. The last time I heard from my mom was today at my boyfriend's house, and that was around 3 p.m., and then I haven't heard from my sister since this morning.
So the last time you talked to your mom was about 3 o'clock this afternoon?
Yes.
Is the front door to the house open?
I have no idea.
Well, when you came in, did you lock it behind you?
No, I came in through the laundry door, and it is unlocked.
Okay. And where is the laundry door? Is that a rear door to the house?
It's kind of off to the side, and it goes to the garage.
Do you have to go into the garage to get through there?
Yes.
And is the garage door up?
Yes.
Okay.
No. The garage door is not up. My mom's van is outside. The garage door is not up. There's a main door right to the left of the garage door.
I'll tell them to go to that door. That's a side door off the garage, right?
Yes.
I'm going to stay here with you, okay, Jennifer?
Yes.
Okay, I don't want you to feel like you're here by yourself.
Yes. Can I go check to see if my parents are even alive?
Pardon?
Can I go check to see if my parents are even alive?
Do you feel comfortable going up there to do that?
I don't know. I worry for them, but I don't know how long it's going to be until...
Well, it shouldn't be too long before we get there.
Okay, I'll try to stay calm.
That's all right. You're doing great. You're doing great.
I don't, ma'am. I don't even know your name, but
My name is Belinda.
Belinda, I've seen these things on TV, and I know the things that can happen, but I can't believe... Oh my gosh. Do you know about how long when they're going to get here?
Well, let me see. Hold on just a second.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
Well, you're doing fine, Jennifer. You're doing fine. Okay, the sheriff's department is right in front of the ambulance, and they are just a few minutes away. So I'm going to let you know when they're there so you can... Tell me, what's the notes, where to go enter, because she doesn't know if the front door is unlocked. I think my notes tell them to go to the side door. Okay, sorry, Jennifer, I have an ambulance on the scene. Now they're going to wait for law enforcement to go in, and that's our procedure.
Can I go outside now?
Well, I want you to wait and make sure law enforcement's there. Then I want you to go out, and I want you to let them know where you're going to be coming through at. See if law enforcement's on the scene, and she'll step out. We don't want you to be going through any...
Well, the ambulance is out there, aren't they? Someone needs to get in here.
They're on scene, okay? If you want to step outside of the door, I told them to go to the side door.
I'm just gonna lay the phone down.
She's gonna step out of the door. Tell them not to be startled by her. No, she doesn't see them, but she does hear them out there. Heather had no idea what Rod did to her parents until they were out of town. On November 27th, the 5 teenagers were a wanted group. There were murder warrants issued for all of them. The vampire cult had been on the run for 4 days before the police caught them on November 28th in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They were able to track them down because Rod's girlfriend Charity had made a phone call to her mother in South Dakota because she and the rest of the group didn't have money and wanted her mother to help her out financially. Her mother was not having any of this foolishness and phoned the police and told them where she was. She even assisted the police on a mission to trick the kids to go to the Howard Johnson's hotel. It worked. The police had the hotel surrounded when the teenagers pulled up, and they were all arrested. They stayed a week at a jail in Baton Rouge, and then they were taken back to Florida, where they were taken to the Lake County Jail. A little later on, they were transferred over to a facility for juveniles. I want to read to you the autopsy reports so we can understand what these victims actually went through. I'll start with Heather's father. The diagnosis of the autopsy. Number 1. Chop wounds and blunt impact to head. A. Facial and skull fractures. B. Facial and scalp lacerations. C. Brain lacerations. D. Brain contusions. E. Subarachnoid hemorrhage. F. Subdural hemorrhage. G. Periorbital ecchymosis. And I am so sorry if I'm mispronouncing these words. Number 2. Burn of chest. Number 3. blunt impact to torso with rib fractures. The cause of death were the chop wounds to the head and skull fractures and brain lacerations. Manner of death, homicide. Now the diagnosis of the autopsy report of Heather's mother, Naomi. Diagnosis. Final anatomic diagnosis. 1. Blunt impact and chop wounds of the head. A. Skull fractures. B. Brain and brainstem lacerations. C. Brain contusions. D. Scalp and face lacerations. E. Periorbital ecchymosis. 2. Blunt impact and chop, stabbed, incised wound of extremities. A. Cutting and blunt impact wounds of arms and hands. B. Contusions of arms. C. Burns of arms. 3. Arteriosclerotic heart disease. 4. Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Cause of death: chop wounds and blunt impact of head with skull fractures and brain lacerations. Manner of death: homicide. The authorities found a video of Rod sobbing and laughing after the murders. It was taped while they were in Louisiana. When the media found out about all of this, they went into a frenzy about the quote, vampire clan. Things got weirder after the arrests. Rod said he was being framed by a rival group of vampires. He said he had many personalities, and he was trying to ditch being a vampire. Almost every time a picture was taken of Rod, he would stick out his tongue or say in a very sarcastic tone, "God bless America." The cult started to crumble, and everyone was out to save themselves. Charity told police that Rod had appeared soaked in blood the night of the murder. Howard Scott Anderson divulged to his mother and a cellmate that he made attempts to make Rod stop. He said Rod just went crazy. Now that the cult was turning against Rod and the excuse of a rival vampire cult making him do it didn't hold any water, he told his attorneys that he suffered from random blackouts that could last for hours on end, and he would never remember anything that happened. The defense tried hard, but there was too much damning evidence. There were bloody shoe prints that matched Rod's perfectly. Plus, he did make a confession right after he was arrested. I'm going to read to you the transcript of the confession. I'm Sergeant Odom. This is Detective Morin. And you know Detective Dewey. What's your name? Roderick Ferrell. Ferrell. What's your date of birth, Roderick? 3/28/80. And what's your middle name? Justin. Do you have a nickname or street name? I just go by Rod. Okay, you're 16 years of age. What's your home address? 906 Broad Street, apartment F6. What city? Murray, Kentucky. Apartment F6, Murray, Kentucky. What are you close to, Paducah? Okay, Rod, you know you are under arrest and are now a fugitive from Lake County Sheriff's Office in Lake County, Florida? Yes. The Constitution of the United States and the state of Louisiana, it is my duty to inform you that number 1, you need not to make any statements and you have the right to remain silent. Do you understand that? Yes. Number 2, anything you say may be used against you in trial. Do you understand that? Yes. Number 3, you have the right to consult with and obtain advice from an attorney before answering any questions. Do you understand that? Yes. Number 4, if you cannot afford an attorney, the court will obtain an attorney to represent you and advise you. Do you understand that? Yes. Number 5, you have the right to have your attorney or an appointed attorney present at the time of any questioning or giving any statement. Do you understand your rights? Yeah. Okay, there's a caveat here that says I understand what's been read to me. A caveat. I just mean something extra. And with full knowledge of my rights, I wish to waive all privileges against self-incrimination, make a statement about my knowledge of the commission of the crime. How far did you go in school, Rod? 10th. Can you read and write? I've lived more knowledge than school ever thought of. I understand. The reason why I did this bullshit. Well, we'll see. Have you ever had any controlled, dangerous substances or alcohol within the last 3 or 4 hours? Probably about an hour after I had some. Okay, and you have a mental disease? Are you seeing a psychiatrist for anything? I was seeing a psychiatrist. Don't know what for. Never paid attention. Who sent you? Your parents? The school, the sheriff's office, my mom, basically the whole city. But you were not under a physician's care for anything? Not drug-wise or anything. Just going to the psychologist. Okay, but did they give you any prescription medicine that you have to take? It wasn't that bad. Okay, Rod, I understand that you talked to Detective Downey and that you've agreed to give a statement about what you know about this problem that arose in Lake County. As long as I get to see Chi. Okay, not a problem. Go ahead. Start. I guess from when you guys were in Kentucky. Do you have a recorder on, or just eyewitness? Eyewitness. I don't remember what night it was, but today is Friday, the 28th. The incident occurred on, I think, Monday, the 25th? Monday. This past Monday. Yeah, it was Tuesday. You're right, it was Tuesday. I'm an old man. Last Friday from Kentucky, because I was over there at Dana's house seeing Chi. Okay, hang on a minute, Rod. Can you get a pad? Do you mind if I make notes? I really don't care. Okay. I really don't care. I guess I'm mentally disturbed. I don't know. Rod, you should never get to that point, son. Even if you're in trouble, you know? It's not because of the trouble. It's because I don't have any concern for life anymore. My own, especially. Perhaps you say that, but, you know, I'm not inside your head. I don't know what's going on. But I know you're still a young guy, and, you've got a lot of living in front of you. Before they transport me, can you try to get something to fix this? Yeah, we'll fix it. Cut it down to the bone, okay? Thanks a lot, sir. You left last Friday? We left 12:30, like I said, over at Dana's apartment to see Che because her and I have been seeing each other for 11 months now and are engaged, and she's pregnant, and all I told Che beforehand that I was going to take her with me and just take a half-ass road trip because I was sick of Murray because all the cops were bugging me there for something I didn't do, and I'm sorry. That's okay. So I got her, and Dana and Scott Anderson came over to her apartment, and I asked him if he wanted to go on a road trip, and He said, sure, just tell me if I'm going too fast. Okay, go ahead. We drove, got all our stuff that we needed, and we left with the bare necessities, and we drove out to where his brothers were because he was supposed to drive them home before 12 that night, and we had Shay go and tell them that we have just been kidnapped by Steve Murphy, better known as Jaden. Okay. And after that, we took off and hit the road. That's when we started towards Florida, so actually, it was you and Scott and Shay. It was me, Scott, Shay, and Dana in the car. Okay. It took about a day to get to Florida, because, like I told Dewey, we were going day and night. Okay, whenever I got to Florida, I looked up some of my old friends to drop by and say hi and shit, and I went by Janine LeClaire's house. That's Zoe's best friend. You know her as Heather. Janine LeClaire? She's my ex-girlfriend. She wanted me to come back and pick her up. Okay, and what town is that in? Eustis. Alright. Okay, after that, I got a hold of Zoe after school one day, talked to her, and she was wanting to leave also with us because we really had no idea where we were going. That was on Monday, whenever I got a hold of her. Okay. Tuesday, during the day, we were pulled over. That got us a little bit nervous, so we decided we wouldn't do anything that night because we had told them that we were going to stay an extra night, and that would have given us 24 hours extra. Where were you pulled over in Eustis? On Lake Joanna Drive. Okay. Because they ran our IDs and shit and couldn't find anything, so they let us go. Alright, okay. So, after that, I went to the payphones at the Kmart, called Zoe up and told her that we were leaving that night for her to grab the shit she needed, like pictures or whatever, and to get a hold of Janine and tell her the same, and that we would be by to pick them up at a specific time, basically whenever it got dark, just around 5:30 or 6. Okay. And we went out to Zoe's house first. Big surprise. Waited for her too. She came down the road about an hour after dark. I'm guessing it was around 6:45 to 7. Okay. Before she, left, so she, Dana, and her got in, came in, and the car, and that Scott took from his mom and drove out there to go see her boyfriend while me and Scott stayed behind. Okay. After we made sure that they were gone, we walked down the road to Heather's house. Okay. Walked up the driveway, looked around the house just to check the perimeters. We saw they left all the doors unlocked and went to the garage, looked for some special items, found special items. What kind of special items? Weapons? Yeah, that's all I was concerned about. Weapons, food, and cash. Okay. Went into her house. Her mother was taking a shower. Her father was asleep on the couch, so I took the liberty of rummaging through the house and getting something to drink because I was so thirsty. Okay. Scott was following right behind me like a little lost puppy, and then before her mother got out of the shower, I went to her dad and smacked the fuck out of him until he finally quit breathing. So, yeah, I'm admitting to murder. Okay. Actually, it took him about 20 fucking minutes to stop. I swear, I thought he was immortal or something. So what did you hit him with? A crowbar. I was gonna use a machete or chainsaw, but that was too messy, just nasty. Crowbar's pretty messy too, you know. No, it only got a little blood spot on me, surprisingly, but Anyway, so after that, I basically picked his body up, screwed him around, and looked for his wallet and stuff, and then that's where we found his Discover card. Alright. And about 2 minutes after that, I flipped him back over. The mother came out of the shower with a nice hot cup of coffee that she spilled all over me because she was asking me what did I want because she thought I was just there to rob them. She hadn't seen her husband yet. No, I made sure that he was hidden. Okay. I didn't want her to freak, so she didn't. Like I said, she just basically looked straight at me and said, "What do you want?" By that time, it was pretty obvious. I had blood on me and a crowbar in my hand, and I was fixing to say, "Yeah, I want to have coffee with you, son of a bitching smartass." But anyway, and that's when she lunged at me, because I was actually going to let her live, but after she lunged at me, I just took the bottom of the crowbar and kept stabbing it through her skull, and whenever she fell down, I just continually beat her until I saw her brains falling on the floor, because that pissed me off. That's how I got these. She scratched you? Yeah, she clawed me. Clawed me, spilled fucking scalding hot coffee on me, pissed me off. Okay. So, I made sure she was dead. Rummaged through the house looking for car keys, money, whatever. Thought about waiting for Zoe's sister, but decided, nah, why bother? Let her come home, have a mental breakdown, call the police, which I was correct, she did. Anyway, went through the parents' bedroom, found the keys to the Explorer, which you've now impounded, casually walked outside afterwards, unlocked the door, peeled out of the driveway. So, where was Scott during all this time? Oh god, he was totally froze. He's never seen people get killed before because he was hyped about telling me how he was going to kill them, so basically he's just an accessory. Okay. After that, we drove over to Janine's house looking for the girls because they thought we were only getting the girls to run away with us, which was very far from our minds at that point in time, because I didn't want to be followed, so we drove back over to Janine's house. At that point in time, we drove the Explorer, so she kind of realized what happened to her parents. She flipped for about 100 miles or so. Heather did? Yeah, she goes by Zoe. Okay. So she looks at me as her father or something. I need to ask you some questions, Rod. You're saying that Scott was in the house with you, but he didn't take part in the actual murder. All he did was watch, and after I was finished killing them, he robbed them. Okay. He took one side of the house and I took the other. The most he did was move the bodies a little bit. What all did you take out of the house? Anything that's in the Bronco? We took her mother's pearls, which were around her teddy bear's neck. We took her father's knife. I don't know what kind it is. Is that, that pocket knife with the blue handle? No. So it's a big knife. It's a 7-inch blade. Like a hunting knife? Uh-huh. Okay. Almost like a buck knife, only it's not a buck knife. Okay. We took $4.75 because we didn't know she had already stolen the money, which made me a little bit frustrated and agitated. Who? Zoe had already taken the money? Yeah, she had already taken the money for gas and so forth. Okay, and the Discover card? That was in his wallet. We took that out of his back pocket. So what did you do with the crowbar? I truthfully don't know. You remember if you left it at the house or if you threw it out while you were in the Explorer? Explorer, right. After we went the first 50 miles or so, I couldn't find it after that because I was going to keep it. Kind of hard to find a murder weapon if you don't want it to. So, you don't know what happened to it. All I know is they might have thrown it out. So that was the transcript of the interrogation and confession. Rod's lawyers desperately tried to keep that confession out of the court, but the judge ruled that the jury would be permitted to hear it. 17-year-old Rod was very cheeky and smart-mouthed. When his trial started on February 5th, 1998, some were expecting that he would plead not guilty. However, he did plead guilty to first-degree murder for slaughtering the Wendorfs, because after all of that evidence was released, he knew there was no way he could plead not guilty after that. Sandra was bawling while Rod's lawyer said, quote, "He accepts responsibility and he wants to live," end quote. A few weeks later, Rod received a death sentence. Judge Jerry Lockett said, quote, "I think you are a disturbed young man. I think your family failed you. I think society failed you," end quote. At only 17 years old, Rod Ferrell was the youngest inmate at the time in the United States on death row. In November of 2000, the Florida Supreme Court had ruled that offenders had to be 17 or older to be executed. So, Rod's death sentence was changed to a life sentence. Rod's mother, Sandra Gibson, was charged with criminal solicitation to commit rape in the 3rd degree and criminal solicitation to commit sodomy in 1997. Sourcing from WendorfMurders.wordpress.com, quote, "Ferrell told Circuit Judge T. Michael Johnson that pleading guilty was a mistake and that he had been misled by the assistant public defenders who represented him. Among his claims was that he was not aware of a voluntary intoxication defense that might have resulted in a lesser sentence. But the judge noted that Ferrell's former attorney, Candace Hawthorne, produced notes including a document called Theory of Defense that reads, "Defendant's mental illness coupled with lack of sleep and drug-induced state created the environment for this second-degree killing." Hawthorne and Assistant Public Defender Bill Lackey pulled hair samples from Ferrell's head to be tested for traces of drugs. The tests were negative. That's from the Akala Star Banner, September 24th, 2003. Standard hair drug test covers cocaine, marijuana, opiates, methamphetamines, and PCP. A standard test covers 90 days. LSD metabolizes quickly and is virtually untraceable in a few days. That can only be detected via a urine test, which is not standard operating procedure. And hair testing for alcohol was not available until the year 2008. Urine testing for alcohol has a detection window of 1 to 5 days. Bleach, hair dye, and perms cannot affect outcome of hair tests, but if the person shaves their head or has less than a half-inch of hair, that outcome could be affected. Howard Scott Anderson owned up to his part of the murders and pled guilty in April of 1998. He was given 2 life sentences. Dana and Charity decided that they would take plea deals so they would get lesser charges and sentences. Charity got 10 years on 2 counts of 3rd-degree murder, robbery with a gun or deadly weapon, and burglary armed with weapon or explosives. Dana got 17 years for the same charges as Charity. They are currently no longer in prison. In December of 2018, Howard Scott Anderson's sentence was reduced greatly from 2 life sentences to only 40 years, which included the time he completed already. When Howard walks out of the prison, he will be 51 years old. From the Orlando Sentinel in 1997 about Howard Scott Anderson, quote, "When he arrived at the Lake County Jail, Anderson was somewhat of a celebrity. Prisoners gathered at his cell door to talk with him. Lately, however, Anderson's charm has worn thin. A fellow prisoner grew irritated with the new teen's claim to be a master of black magic and voodoo. Now, fellow prisoners wait until he falls asleep, then douse him with cold water through the bars." End quote. As far as Heather Wendorf, 2 grand juries decided against pressing charges against her, twice, for being involved in her parents' killings. Everyone in the group said she honestly wasn't there and didn't know that her parents were killed until later. Joe Barrett, 15 years old, a classmate of Heather's, revealed that Heather, quote, "was a real sweet girl, but deep down you could tell she had emotional problems. And when she started hanging around with Ferrell, she changed. She started dyeing her hair purple or red, and she wore all of these long black clothes. She went around telling her friends that she had so-called crossed over and became a vampire," end quote. And that is from The Independent on December 5th, 1996. From The Independent on December 5th, 1996, it also says, Heather told Jeremy Huber that, quote, "You could have the best sex only after a blood drink." Lake County Sheriff's Office detective / investigator Ron Patton said, quote, "In the days leading to her parents' murder, Heather Wendorf asked her sister Jennifer, 17 years old, if she had ever planned to kill their parents. Then she told Jennifer that she decided that Rod Ferrell would be a person to ask if you want someone killed." And that was from the Orlando Sentinel on December 5th, 1996. From the Orlando Sentinel on April 25th, 1998, Rod Ferrell claimed during his murder trial that he asked Heather whether it was okay to kill her parents. He said, "You spoke so much about me killing your parents. Do you still want me to?" She said yes, is what he testified. By 2006, Heather was estranged from her family, but she had gotten married and she was taking art classes in North Carolina. In 2006, Heather said about Rod, quote, "He was charming. He could tell a lie like it was the truth," end quote. At some point, she wrote Howard Anderson a letter. The letter says, quote, "The thing is, I am a gullible and naive girl. I admit that in full, and with that, I can be easily taken advantage of. The good side is my loyalty can be quite strong when given my proper reason. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Being naive and being innocent is a beautiful thing. It gives my eyes a different perspective of my world. When things happen to break my innocence and relinquish my naive self, my worries increase. Please consider that to me, being naive isn't just a part of my characteristics, but more of a defense." End quote. Heather has said that she didn't think any of them took the vampire cult seriously. She said it was, quote, "something to have, something special in your life you felt secret about." Reported in 2012, Charity Kesey's father, David, said, quote, "She was a good child until this. I told her to get out of the sect. She said, 'They won't let me, they'll kill me.' I believe the devil has my daughter's soul. I can't explain her behavior any other way." End quote. Since her release from prison as of 2012, Charity moved back to Murray, Kentucky, where she has 2 children. She volunteers her time helping recently released criminals reintegrate into society, and she was studying to become a paralegal. In 2019, Rod was back in a Lake County court to be resentenced under recent rulings by the U.S. Supreme Court. Dr. James Garbarino, a psychologist and author whose specialty is in the field of what makes kids violent, he said, quote, "I think his sense of guilt and remorse is profound and genuine," end quote. The doctor said Rod was also introduced into the vampire cult world by a woman named Ileana. The psychologist said, quote, "He describes it as a mentor and student, or a master and slave kind of engagement. It was sexual. He described it as a standard sexual behavior. There was some candle wax. She forced him to watch other people and report back what he had seen. This vampire cult kind of darkness that, if anything, it may have prompted him to feel like he had to be the baddest one to maintain his position of leadership," end quote. Heather's Uncle Robert, who is Richard Wendorf's brother, made an avid statement to the judge to keep Rod locked up, saying, quote, "Maybe it's the best thing my brother Richard will never know that he died for Rod's thrill. Judge, please keep this man in jail forever so no one else will ever be a victim," end quote. Rod is serving 2 life sentences at Tomoka State Prison. In 2019, the Herald Tribune spoke to Rod's mother, Sandra. She said, quote, "He's changed so much. Of course, he's 39 now. He was 16 at the time," end quote. Rod has taken many re-entry classes and has even taught some courses. He also obtained a wastewater treatment license so he can get a job. Sandra said, quote, "There's a lot of positives to look at. I know he wants to do really well, to be in the right location, to get on with his life. He doesn't want to hang around with the victims. I'm a lot like that. As I've gotten older, I've learned that it's very important to live a decent life. You can really make a difference," end quote. Sandra said she has moved back in with her mother, who is now 90 years old, so she can take care of her. She said she has a jewelry business, a completely different set of friends where she lives in Bellevue, and she's searching for a church to start going to. She said, quote, "The people I associate with now don't say anything about it," end quote. Her father, Harold Gibson, who Rod accused of molesting and raping him, now has dementia and is in a lockdown memory unit in Sarasota. Psychologists said Rod was gang raped by Harold's friends and that he molested Rod. Sandra's older sister testified during the trial in 1998 that her father had sexually abused both her and Sandra, so it doesn't seem far-fetched that he would do the same to his own grandson. Psychologist Heather Holmes testified during the resentencing hearing that Sandra faced the homeowner where the rape took place, and she had 5-year-old Rod with her when she did so. Heather Holmes said she thought she was sticking up for her son, but it just re-traumatized him. In a book called The Embrace from 1999, Stephen, also known as Jaden, explains he was the senior vampire before Rod was initiated. Jaden then became Rod's sire. He was responsible for Rod's behavior. He explained the rules of vampire conduct to Rod, but that did not stop him from breaking those rules when he put together his own cult of followers. In the book, he says, "Vampires don't kill and are expected to show the highest admiration for life. We have to live by the laws that surround us. We are not super beings who can twist things the way we want them. The Wendorf murders were not vampiric because Rod did not bleed the bodies. There was no bloodletting. He did not take from them. Bloodletting can be a sexual act. Vampires are very sensual. The embrace, whether it be male on male, female on female, it's all sexual. It's the taking of one's fluid into your body, the joining of souls and spirits that have walked the earth for thousands of years." And that is the story of Rod Ferrell, his so-called vampire cult, and the Wendorf murders. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I want to thank my patrons at patreon.com/ReverieTrueCrime. Thank you so much, Tommy, Corey, Jimmy, Joe, Casey, Shannon, James, Matt, Ian, Brandy, Chelsea, Maggie, Liz, Shayna, Trevor, Kara, Emily, Denise, Lorraine, and Melissa. I want to thank every one of you for supporting the podcast however you choose to. Thank you for your support of me. It means the world to me. And until next time, please stay safe and take care. I love you.